Today on the program, Porsche finds itself in a crisis situation. The state has allowed more than 1 million cars to be registered illegally. In 2025, the average price of cars has dropped for the first time in 6 years, and Honda admits it was completely wrong and cancels all its electric car projects. For years, Porsche was the golden goose of the automotive industry, a cash machine so efficient it could bring a Swiss banker to tears of emotion. But that was before, because the year 2025 was a disaster for Porsche, with profits collapsing and sales in China plummeting. The strategy was as clear as a politician's speech. In short, the Titan from Stuttgart wavered, because in 2024, Porsche was raking in 5.6 billion euros in operating profits, with a comfortable margin of 14%. And in 2025, the result dropped to 413 million euros and the margin to 1%. So what happened? How did the top student in the class end up in trouble? Well, it's an explosive mix. First, there were the Americans with the tariffs. For Porsche, which exports its cars there, that cost the modest sum of 700 million euros. To compensate, Porsche did what every luxury brand does: raise prices. A 911, for example, went up by more than $21,000 in less than 2 years. But the real carnage is in China. Once a land of opportunity, the Chinese market has turned into a real minefield, and Porsche's sales there have collapsed by 26%. Why? Because Chinese manufacturers have stopped making low-end copies. Now they're releasing high-end electric sedans and SUVs that, it must be admitted, are seriously impressive and less expensive. For Porsche, the competition has become fierce. And then there are the decisions, let's say Porsche decisions. They decided to retire models that were selling like hotcakes, like the previous versions of the 718 Boxster Cayman and the gasoline-powered Macan. All of this in the name of the so-called holy transition to electric. Speaking of electric, by the way, Porsche wanted to go all in, faster than everyone else. The problem is that the market didn't follow at all, so Porsche had to slam on the brakes. It's proof that ideology is good, but profitability is better. Faced with all these problems, a new boss took over, Michael Letters. Getting Porsche back on track for profitability. And for that, the solution is going to be tough. They're talking about cutting nearly 4,000 jobs by 2030 and simplifying the entire lineup. Is this the end of Porsche's golden age or just a setback before a stronger comeback? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. In Stuttgart, the engineers have their work cut out for them. Now let's talk about French administration, more specifically the registration certificate. That little piece of paper that gives you the right to drive the car you've already paid for. We all remember, with a tear in our eye, the endless lines at the prefecture. It was hell, but at least we knew where we were going. Then, in 2017, the government had an idea, a brilliant idea. What if we digitized everything? No more counters, everything would be done online, it would be simple, fast, wonderful. On paper, it was great. Except that for it to work, they gave the keys to the system to more than 30,000 automotive professionals. The problem is, to become one of these authorized professionals, all you really need is a computer and an internet connection. The controls were almost non-existent. And what happened? Well, the biggest surprise in human history, dishonest people took advantage of it. Entire networks rushed into the gap. It was a free-for-all. They created phantom garages, companies that only existed on paper, just so they could mass-produce registration documents. Hold on tight. Between 2022 and 2024, it's estimated that 1 million vehicles were registered. And the loss for the state, meaning for you and me, is more than 550 million euros gone, vanished. But it's not just about the money. The real problem is that this massive fraud has become dangerous. We're talking about crashed cars, wrecks that should have been scrapped, which were magically put back on the road with brand new papers, without any inspection at all. We're discussing fake vehicle inspections, dangerous cars with legit papers driving beside you on the highway. The Court of Auditors, which isn't exactly known for harsh reports, talks about massive fraud, and that the state was completely ineffective and didn't react. The system is full of holes, an invitation to fraud, and dangerous cars keep driving, and hundreds of millions of euros keep disappearing. The next time you come across a car that seems a bit suspicious to you, don't wonder if the driver is a danger. Ask yourself if its registration card wasn't printed by some guy in pajamas from his garage, which doesn't even exist. Then, for years, they kept singing us the same song. Electric cars are the future. They're clean, they're quiet, and above all, they're an excellent way to empty your bank account. It must be said that the manufacturers really helped with that. Between 2020 and 2024, the average price of an electric car went up by 5,000 euros. Their strategy was simple: build huge vehicles, 2.5-ton SUVs loaded with leather and giant screens, like the Audi e-tron, BMW 9, or other Mercedes EQS. And then, in 2025, something happened. Prices dropped for the first time in ages. The average price dropped by 4%, which is about 1,800 euros. The average price fell to 42,700 euros. So, it's still not cheap, let's not get carried away, but it's a good start. And what is this miracle? Where does this sudden surge of generosity come from? Well, it seems that the manufacturers have rediscovered a revolutionary invention: the small car, the city car, the car for normal people who just want to get from point A to point B.
À un point B, les prix des
Electric, versatile city cars have dropped by 13%. We're finally seeing models that make sense, like the new Citroën IC3, the Renault 5 E-Tech, or even the Fiat Grande Panda. Now, don't think that the manufacturers had a divine revelation. No, if they're doing this, it's because they're being forced. By whom? By Brussels, of course, the famous regulations on carbon monoxide, 2 emissions. To meet their targets, the manufacturers have no choice. They have to sell electric cars, and to sell them, they have to be eco-friendly. The trend should continue. The Volkswagen Group is preparing a whole army of small electric cars around 25,000 euros. The Polo Idea, the Cupra Raval, the Skoda Epic. But a think tank, Transport and Environment, warns us that all this momentum could be stopped abruptly if politicians decide to change the rules. If they decide to relax the carbon monoxide, 2 targets for 2030 manufacturers will no longer have any reason to make efforts, and prices could be on average 2,300 euros higher than expected. So it would be the height of irony, just as the market is finally starting to move in the right direction, when we are beginning to see a glimmer of hope. For the average driver, it would only take a signature at the bottom of a document in Brussels to ruin everything. And finally, Honda, the kings of the naturally aspirated engine, the wizards of variable valve timing and lift electronic control, the people who gave us the NSX and the Civic Type R, serious people, engineers. And these engineers had a plan, a grand plan to conquer the world of electric cars. They called it the Zero Series. They showed us prototypes, the Zero Saloon and the Zero SUV. And the sedan especially looked amazing, with a front end like a Lamborghini Gallardo. Some people said it was low, wide, aggressive. It was pretty desirable. Everything was ready. The new platform, the factory in the United States, which was already heating up, the launch was planned for this year, and we were finally going to see what Honda was capable of when it came to electric vehicles. And then, in a dramatic turn of events, Honda just announced that they were canceling everything. The sedan, the SUV, and even another model. For the United States, the cars are being thrown away just a few months before production. So why this spectacular U-turn that's going to cost them a fortune? Officially, Honda did the math and realized that selling their cars would have made them lose astronomical amounts of money. And it's rare, a manufacturer admitting with such honesty. We were wrong. We were heading straight for disaster, they say. Kudos for the honesty. But when we talk about a fortune, we're not talking about a few million. We're talking about losses that could
dépasser les 8 milliards.
So what could have caused such panic? 2 things. First, America, the market where these cars were supposed to be built and sold. It turns out that a certain Donald Trump returned to the White House and decided that electric cars were over. He dismantled all the incentives favoring the good old gasoline engine again. Secondly, China. Over there, customers have changed. They no longer want an efficient and well-built car. No, they want a smartphone on wheels, a tablet with seats. They don't care about handling as long as they can get the latest karaoke software update. And faced with Chinese manufacturers who release a new model every 3 weeks, Honda admitted with touching humility that they simply wouldn't be able to keep up. So, what does the future hold for Honda? Well, they're not throwing in the towel just yet. They're not throwing in the electric towel, but they're going to take it slow. Basically, they'll only release an electric car if they're sure they can make money with it, and right away. And that means combustion and hybrid engines at Honda aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And for us in Europe, we'll probably keep having what we've always had, a range of hybrid SUVs. A bit boring. Thank you all for watching this new video. Don't hesitate to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to make sure you don't miss anything. See you